You're listening to Careers and Cocktails, career talk with a twist, hosted by expert recruiter Renee Frey. Let's get this party started.
Hey party people, welcome back to Careers and Cocktails. Today I'm thrilled to be sitting here with one of my many cousins, Mikey Boldt. We actually, on both of our mom's side, they have 14 sisters and brothers. So we have an army of cousins, and Mikey is joining us today, and he has a awesome software technology background. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Mikey.
Sure. I'm a software engineer at a company called VMware.
Very famous company.
Yeah. If you know anything about the tech industry, you know VMware. We actually, I was working for Pivotal Software. VMware acquired them just near the end of last year.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
2019. So, yeah, recently VMware employee now. So far, so good.
Awesome. And this is one of your favorite beers, a Founders Breakfast Stout.
Breakfast Stout. We're recording a little early today, so
Yeah.
I figured, hey, let's have some breakfast.
I love it. And so the Founders is actually made in Michigan. It's a American Double Imperial Stout, 8.3% alcohol. We're going to get loopy. Silver medal GABF in 2018. I have no idea what that means, but maybe they won an award.
Great American Beer Festival.
I'm glad that you're knowledgeable about this. So the Great American Beer Festival in 2018, silver medal, Founders, Breakfast Stout. It's brewed with flaked oats, bitters, and sweetened imported chocolates, Sumatra and Kona coffee. I'm a huge Kona lover. And it has an intense, fresh, roasted coffee nose topped with a cinnamon frothy head that seems to never fade. So let's open one of these bad boys. And there's a little boy. It's like eating breakfast. So I'll pour yours into your glass. And we have these pub glasses from the Uptown Bar and Grill Cafe, which no longer exists in Uptown. But I love remembering all of the great breakfasts I had there on a Sunday, and they would fill these pub cups with their tasty Bloody Marys. Ooh. Yeah, it was awesome. But they closed a few years back, so these are kind of relics. Whoops. All right, I'm pouring it into the cup, and we're going to have a taste. It's very dark. It's like a Guinness
Cheers.
look. Cheers. Yeah. Oh, that's delicious. Why do you like this beer, Mikey?
I've always been a fan of, variety in beers, and this just has a nice smooth flavor. It's got that, dark, rich beer taste, and the coffee kind of adds a little dynamic there too.
It's very well blended, I feel, with the coffee, chocolate, bitter flavor. It is very smooth. Yum.
Nothing overpowers it, and it's just, yeah.
I love it. So pretend I'm a kindergartner and explain to me what you do for a living.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I work for VMware.
Yep.
Our current focus, what we're saying is we're going to run any app on any device from any cloud. So that's kind of a very broad generalization of
your company is magic.
Yeah. It's not magic. It's just somebody else's computer, right? So,
right.
Yeah, that's in the big picture. And so we zoom in a little bit. I work on a cloud computing platform. So we have application developers at typically large companies, Fortune 500 type companies, need a place to run their software, reducing the overhead that developers need to do to take their software from, writing code and adding features into production.
Sure.
And, making that a fast cycle. That's kind of where we fit in. Pivotal, the company that was acquired by VMware, which was recent. So I'm still kind of in the Pivotal mindset in some ways. So, they also do some big data analysis type stuff. We have products and services around that, and also some consulting business to basically help large enterprise companies transform into great software companies.
Cool.
So, you think of things like Amazon and Uber and,
Right.
whoever else. If you're an big enterprise and you're not a great software company, you're going to get beat by somebody who is.
Oh, absolutely.
So we have services that go and kind of train software engineering development practices, and things like that. So it all kind of ties together with, we have services, so people are writing better applications that run on our platform, and with those applications, you end up with a lot of data and logs and metrics and things that you want to crunch through. So
awesome.
We end up with the data side.
So how did you get into software engineering? What did you go to college for?
Yeah, software engineering.
Okay, so you knew.
Math.
Like,
so,
how did you know? When did you know?
Yeah, so growing up, it was kind of the advent of the internet. I was on dial-up modems to Prodigy.
Oh my
and all
God!
that,
Now you're
right?
going in the archives.
Yeah.
Dial-up modem.
Aging myself, right? I can still hear the sounds,
right? Or that makes me think of "You've Got Mail," like the AOL.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's great. Yeah. But yeah, so I've always been interested in computers. Did a little bit of programming, just a book, or there was like one class in my high school at that time. There was a programming class, and just loved it, and just always been interested in it. So I knew that was what I wanted to do going into college. Got a math and computer science degree from St. John's, and kind of went from there. So I can go deeper into my career.
Tell me, because there's so many different aspects of software engineering. There's different languages, people, there's front end, back end, middle. Mm-hmm. What space do you dabble in, and how did you do that throughout your careure?
Yeah.
And what have you touched throughout your career?
It took me a while to kind of, and we're all still kind of finding our path too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, ongoing. But I started off, at St. John's. I worked with a professor at a research job doing scientific computing, high performance computing type stuff, which was cool, and it was probably cooler than I actually thought it was back then.
Yeah.
So I worked with him for a couple of years, right? Now that I've matured and see that, but so I worked for a couple of years doing that. Wanted to try something different, but wanted to kind of keep in that research vein. So I ended up going to grad school at the University of Minnesota. Started off in the PhD program. Never really found my way into something I wanted to focus on and go really deep and narrow on for 5 to 7 years or something like that.
Sure.
I'm more of a generalist mindset, and that's one of the things that I've kind of learned along my journey is that I don't like, I don't want to be the expert in the tiny thing. I want to be broader and be able to pick up different, wider variety of things.
Sure.
So,
with that broadness, though, how do you stay on top of all the technologies, new and existing?
Yeah, that's always a struggle and a balance of, getting things done, being productive, and keeping up with the industry, keeping up with what's new. So, I'm in a position right now where I can travel to conferences pretty regularly. So I'm at, maybe 5 conferences a year.
Oh, wow. Which ones? Tell me, which ones do you attend?
So this past year I went to our company's conference, the Pivotal Spring One Platform Conference. I went to KubeCon, which is based, and it's co-located with open source, what is it? I forget the exact title. Open source something.
We can add it in the notes later.
Okay. So it's KubeCon and Cloud Native Con. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Not open source. It's Cloud Native Con and KubeCon. So that's a lot of the cloud native, cloud computing, the frameworks and platforms and tools and technologies around that. Trying to think of what else I went to last year. Those were kind of the main ones. Oh, Cloud Foundry Summit. So Pivotal was a big. It's just our platform that we sold at Pivotal is based on the Cloud Foundry is an open source project, and we kind of commercialize it and add some proprietary stuff on top of it.
Got it.
So that's another conference that I've been to. So
cool.
Between those, it's, keeping up with the company, keeping up with kind of the core open source technology that we use, and keeping up with the rest of the cloud native world. So
right.
It helps a lot just to build relationships and kind of see what's going on.
Yeah. How do you do that? Because, I know you're an outgoing software engineer.
Right.
I've met a lot of very shy, more introverted software engineers. How do you put yourself out there and network with people? Or have you always been outgoing, Mikey?
Yeah. So there's one of our a software engineer from Google I work with. On her LinkedIn profile, she says above average social skills for a software engineer, and I always thought that was great.
That is great.
That goes a long way. It's very meaningful. It's very important. So, I've haven't really had trouble in the striking up conversations or talking with people, but I know that for a lot of people, a lot of software engineers, maybe in particular, it's exhausting to go out for a day and be surrounded by thousands of people at a large conference. And so, that being said, I always think the hallway track is the most interesting part, just chatting with random people around, the booth area, or, not necessarily learning something from inside the sessions, but just chatting with people who happen to be around. And so I think the value of that is what we have to remember, is that it's really valuable.
It is very valuable.
And for that, it's worth, maybe pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
Right. So what would be an intro phrase or question that someone who is shy or introverted could ask someone in the hallway that would strike a conversation? Yeah.
So typically I would say an easy way is just to find a table, and typically these places have breakfast or lunch. Find a table with some open chairs, sit down and just, say, hi, I'm so-and-so. I work at this company or whatever, what do you do? And that typically you'll find some sort of common thread there, and you can pull on it and see what's going on.
Absolutely.
And if there's nothing in common, just keep asking questions and learn. Because you'll walk away with some new knowledge.
Absolutely. And it's so cool because in these little conversations, you can benchmark what companies are doing, which is super valuable, because we all have the same problems within companies. We're all trying to, solve the same problems, and one company might be doing it a little different than another, and you can take that knowledge and bring it back to your company.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. And that's the whole point, right, of the conference.
Exactly.
It's getting the community together. There's a lot of people with a lot of similar problems. Let's work together.
Okay, back to your career history, because I totally hijacked it. Where were you at?
Okay, so
going up the Mikey career path.
So grad school, didn't find my way towards a PhD. Got a job at a large software company. I was at Veritas Software, got purchased by Symantec. Side note, later on after I left, it got spun back out as Veritas. So it's Veritas again. These things happen, right?
Right.
So worked there for, I think it was about 5 years. After that, and that was working on kind of the cutting edge of a, I don't know if I'd say boring, but it was.
How can you use cutting edge and boring in the same sentence?
Right. So it was backup. It was like enterprise backup software, right? Which sounds boring, right?
But it's critical.
It's important. Not to say boring stuff is the most important stuff, to be honest.
Really?
I would say so, right? Like backup
you're right.
stuff.
You're right.
And like I don't know. It's just the way the world works.
Right.
I guess is it's important in some ways. But so as backup software, I was feeling not terribly fulfilled, but I was kind of on the cutting edge of newer technologies and newer ways of doing things, which was fun. The people were great, but I was feeling kind of like a large company cog in the wheel, not terribly interested in the product we were building and stuff like that. And some people were thrilled with it. I know a guy who left there went and got a PhD in storage technologies or something, right? I mean, people are into it. It just wasn't my cup of tea. So, did a little bit of soul searching there. What can I go? Because all the practicalities. Again, the people were good. Compensation was fine. Everything else was nice. It was just I was not feeling quite fulfilled in my work, right? Which is probably something you hear a lot, right?
Yes.
So
I hear more often than not.
Yeah.
You want a job that makes you jump out of bed. Yeah,
right. So did a little soul searching. Actually did this exercise with the guy from my church. I think it was based on the motivation abilities pattern profile, something like that. Ooh, have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. Is there a book on it?
I don't know the book off the top of my head, but let's look at it. maybe show notes again.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so he didn't use a book. He just kind of did an interview, had some little pre-work where you think back to different stages in your life. So say elementary school, high school, college now, whatever. Some things that you really enjoy doing then. And basically given that, you look for some common threads of things that, the way he put it wasn't like things that you like, but it was like things that you will find a way to do no matter where you are, right?
Sure. And
so it was really interesting because even at, you look back and you say, oh yeah, even like at that job I did that. At high school I played sports like this and kind of had this attitude there and things like that. So we kind of tied together all of that and found this kind of profile of me. And then I kind of took that and went and interviewed different people who were doing different jobs. And I happened to get back in touch with the company that I interned with, which was a small research company in Minneapolis called Smart Information Flow Technologies, or SIFT. And talking to him, it seemed like a good fit. It was actually kind of a funny story because I interned there, and at the end of the summer internship, we had kind of a misunderstanding that I could have stayed there.
Yeah.
But just the wording that he used. So it was kind of a hectic time, and everybody was super busy, and I didn't get a lot of direction or hand holding, which I didn't necessarily need or want. But so we ended the summer as kind of, we don't really have a place for you. And I took that as, we don't really have a job for you.
Sure.
And he meant that as like, you'll still be kind of floating around between things like that.
Oh,
but
no,
you were
and
welcome
then,
to stay.
And then you left.
And I was like, well, that's the end of that. And,
and
so I went, and then 5 years later, I talked to him. He's like, yeah, I always kind of felt bad about you because you were the first person who left the company like on their own volition. I was like, wait, I did? What did I do that for?
Right.
So 5 years later, I ended up, back at the research company.
Oh, that's cool.
That stuff. So, yeah, that was kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. So now we're doing research, artificial intelligence, security, human factors research, very exciting topics, and just a small company. So you're not a cog in the wheel. You're actually making an impact and need to be responsible and thinking a bit more broadly than just like this little piece of code you're working on or whatever. So I like that a lot. It was great. It was a great time. The company ended up getting a little short on contracts for a bit, and I got a family to feed. So ended up reaching back out to some of the people I worked with at my Symantec Veritas job. I noticed that several of them had ended up at this company called Pivotal. So I got back in touch with them and started working there. Our team was responsible for a couple of things. The main focus has been integrating third-party software into our cloud computing platform. So a lot of interaction there. Again, the social side of things comes in a lot, working with a lot of different people, helping out people with their technology problems and helping them get integrated. As well as kind of staying on this cutting edge of our cloud computing platform, what's missing, what's coming up next, is there new technology that we need to bring in, are there new patterns that we can prove out on there, things like that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Going back to, so what a cool resource that your church had for you to do that exploration piece about what really you wanted to do. But how did you identify who you were going to reach out to for those kind of informational interviews? How did you do that?
Yeah, so thinking back to that, so one, I knew, it was people that I met along the way. So it was, one was kind of a cold interview for a teaching position. One was a guy who had his own small software shop.
Sure.
And then one was this, the research company.
Sure.
I forget if I said that, but how did I find those? How did I think of those?
And how did you approach them?
Yeah. So I basically just very honestly and transparently said, hey, I'm at a point where I'm doing a little bit of soul searching, looking at a career like yours or in the industry you are in. Would you mind grabbing a cup of coffee and just having a chat for an hour? And a couple of them, like I said, I had existing relationships with a couple of them, but one of them was cold and it was just very nice. It was, very nice of them to sit down with me for an hour of their time and buy them a cup of coffee. And
yeah. You're the epitome of a job seeker
All
or,
right.
figuring out what you want to do. Cheers to that, Mikey.
Cheers.
That's awesome. I tell everyone to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what did you want to be when you grew up besides software engineer? Was there something else when you were even smaller than...
When I was before computers?
Yeah, before computers.
I probably wanted to be a football player, I suppose,
okay.
at some point. So I played football. Believe it or not, I was a lineman through my football career
wow.
from 4th grade through high school.
Okay.
I had about 40 more pounds on me, and so I was too big to run the ball when I was young. They have weight limits, and so I was a lineman from that, and that was probably my childhood dream.
Awesome. And what can we celebrate for you this week?
Well, my family and I, we just got back from a Disney World vacation, which was a success. So I'm back in town and back at it this week. So we can celebrate that time we had together. And
that's the best. That's why we work, right? Cheers
Yeah.
to that. Well, I mean, you love your job. I love my job too.
Yeah, right.
But vacations are great.
Yeah.
And you got out of this crappy cold.
Yeah, it was actually cold in Florida. I mean, for Florida cold.
Was it?
Cold. Yeah, we were in hats and gloves and jackets and stuff.
Bummer.
For some of the time. There was some good sun too.
What's your favorite ride?
My favorite ride this time was this new Star Wars ride.
Ooh.
I'm not like huge Star Wars geek, but this ride was awesome. It was called Rise of the Resistance.
Oh, fun.
And they like put you into Star Wars. You're go to a rebel base, and
seriously,
and the First Order comes and takes you and puts you into a interrogation chamber.
Oh, really?
And takes you all over, and then you escape. It's great. It's amazing.
Oh, fun.
It was really cool.
I'll have to check that out next time.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go on a party bus, Mikey.
Uh-oh.
Who are you gonna invite? They have to be alive.
They have to be alive? Okay.
Who's coming on our party bus?
The first one would be my wife, Jackie.
Okay.
Because with 4 kids, we have 4 kids, and there's just not enough time to get away and party with my wife anymore.
Sure.
So,
perfect. Jackie,
we'll bring
we're
Jackie.
calling you up. We'll get the limo or the bus. I love it. So what's the most rewarding part of your job?
Yeah. Most rewarding part, I would say, is seeing something you've built or some vision that you've been working towards actually like come to life, right? So something that was not possible before or was difficult before or whatever, now becoming possible, now becoming easier. Now somebody's saying, oh my gosh, this made my life better, right?
Yeah. Isn't that the best?
That's like the most rewarding.
That's
that and just the, that's kind of big. And then the smaller day-to-day stuff is just the little, like, a lot of software engineering is at the small scale, it's problem solving. So every day you're solving a problem. Mm-hmm. And when you get deep into something, you're kind of banging your head against the wall, having that moment when you say, oh, it's this, and you fix it and you solve that problem. That's, you get the little dopamine hit or whatever.
Yeah. I love it. How about on the frustrating side? What's the most frustrating part about your role?
Yeah. Some of it is just computers, right?
We have that problem here at TalentQ as well.
Yeah, no, that doesn't go away just because you're in tech or a software engineer.
Right.
So some of it's that. There's been moments of working with difficult people. I mentioned we did partnerships with third parties, and sometimes that can be frustrating for various reasons, whether it's individual people or companies, making investments or not making investments, or swapping people around on you and having to start fresh again and things like that. So
yeah, that can be very frustrating.
How
How about working with offshore teams? Do you have any tips for working with offshore teams?
Yeah, so we don't have, I haven't worked terribly closely at my first job, a little bit with some offshore team where we had the folks working on our user interface were in India, and the kind of the back end and middleware were in the US here. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So that was mostly, there was kind of a clear, clear interface there between our responsibilities and theirs, and and we would coordinate a little bit, but it wasn't too tight.
Okay.
So I've actually been working not necessarily offshores. We do have a couple people. We have one guy in Hawaii and one guy in Germany now.
Oh, fun.
But which is hard to get those two in a room together because they're 12 hours apart.
Right.
So, but that aside, the team I'm on now, I've actually been working remotely from home for about the last 10 years. So not necessarily offshore, but different people around the country.
Sure.
And a few international or very far away. And I think FaceTime when you can, as much as you can, we get together with our team. So I'm right now on a team of about 20 people, like I said, from Hawaii and Germany. Most of us are in the continental U.S., one in Canada. But getting together, we get together 2 or 3 times a year, face to face.
Oh, cool.
It's a team of about 20 or so engineers. And that helps a lot just to kind of reset. You get the water cooler talk. You get to update on everything. You get to just hang out, right?
Right.
And we have a really nice group. We get along really well. And those times that we meet up face to face are just really valuable and really love it. So
yeah, face to face is important.
That's good. We do a lot of video chat. We do a lot of Slack messaging.
Sure.
So kind of synchronous chat type of stuff.
It's all very important.
Turn your cameras on.
Yeah.
Video calls. That's an important one.
Yeah.
It just feels a bit more engaging. It's not the same as being in the same room, but it helps.
Yeah. I do that a lot. We use Zoom a lot with our clients too, because we recruit nationwide. So that face to face is really valuable, I feel. So moving to like technical interview for our listeners, how do you prep for a technical interview? And what advice would you give?
Yeah. So as you saw through my career path, a lot of it has been networking and connections from, so I haven't done a ton of technical interviewing, but at this last job search, I did a little bit. And I think the biggest thing to prepare for is just be prepared to be yourself, because there's, at the end of the day, and me now as, I'm a software engineer, but I'm also a manager, and I've been involved in the hiring process a bit. And to see, at least at my company or the people that we hire, we look for, not necessarily the hard technical skills, but, the ability to learn.
Sure.
The personality and cultural fit that you bring to the company and things like that. So I think just being genuine, being yourself is probably one of the biggest things. I guess the other bit, which maybe is obvious, but like, learn about the company you're interviewing for. Learn as much as you can, and ideally talk to somebody who works there if you have any connections there, and understand it better, because we've had it's obvious when somebody doesn't know what they're talking about if they interview and they're you can absolutely have questions about the company, but you should know the basics. What's their business? What do they do? If it's on your public website, at least read the first couple pages, right?
Yes, exactly. And then, throughout your career, I'm sure you've had to communicate technical information to non-technical colleagues. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I think that's actually one of my strengths is having. I might have mentioned this. Went to St. John's University in Minnesota, liberal arts college, not some deep technical degree, but BA in computer science. And so I think that's helped me a lot to be able to communicate. I think to non-technical folks in particular, just keeping in mind that there's a lot more context around the technical thing that you're trying to describe that's important, that if you're deep in the weeds, you're losing a lot of that context about kind of the elevator pitch about why you're doing what you're doing. And kind of giving a lot of information around it, motivation, why this is important, what value it's going to bring. And I think setting the stage with all that context, and then if you want to dive into the technology, the details there, it'll make a lot more sense to someone who's less technical.
Absolutely. Now, do you still have a side hustle? Yeah?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Actually,
How did you start that, and how do you balance that amongst everything you're doing, Mikey?
Yeah. So it's actually quite small, to be honest. mostly doing websites for friends and family. One guy I've talked to who does something similar. He says it feels kind of like work light. It's pretty. It's not real deep technical, deep in the weeds coding type stuff. It's like making a web page and making it look pretty and things like that, and you get kind of this instant gratification. So
fun.
Yeah. It's a little more visual and things than most of the stuff I do. So
awesome.
How do I find the time? What do I do?
Because there's a lot of technologists that have side hustles.
Yeah. Well, it's so easy, right? I mean,
for you.
Well, I mean,
not for me.
Yeah, it's you can if you're tech savvy, if you're a software engineer, you can probably throw up a website in an hour.
Oh my gosh,
you can have a website up and running, and it's not.
It would take me I don't know, too long.
Yeah, and so. How do I balance it? I balance it by keeping it small. I started it just because I've always had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit.
Awesome.
It's always been something like I wanted to have ready in case that idea hits one day or, whatever.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
Having that in place and then just doing some of these websites it's almost a hobby,
Oh, right. Well, that's like my husband, Dustin, got into computers because it was his hobby.
Yeah.
And then when I said, well, you should probably go do your hobby for a living because then you can get paid for it, and now he's a director, so
yeah
it's crazy how that happens.
Yeah.
So what's your biggest failure and how did you overcome it?
Oh, biggest failure, the one I remember in my technical or my career path, the one that kind of sticks out in my mind was the first time I tried to write a research proposal to win some money for the research company I worked at. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of these folks that have been there have been doing this for years, decades. It's not a big deal to them, right? But it was my first one. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I kind of, between hearing other people talk about, oh, yeah, we cranked that one out and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I didn't get it done on time.
Oh,
and
yikes.
The proposal didn't get in. And I was like, oh, gosh. And so
you didn't even send it in half baked?
No, that wouldn't
that doesn't work.
That wouldn't have flagged. No. And so, yeah, I mean, I overcame that by learning my lesson. If I'm doing something new for the first time, give that extra time. Don't judge how much time something is going to take based off of the experts who have done it. It's kind of they could do one in their sleep.
So, what were the repercussions of that at your company?
Oh, I got dumped on a bit from one of the owners, but I mean, I'm doing fine otherwise, and I submitted proposals after that, and it was kind of just a costly learning experience, I guess.
Sure,
is how it came out, and I the next review cycle, I'm like, well. Obviously that was a big failure. He was like, oh, that was not that big a deal. We've all done it. I'm like, what?
So, oh my gosh.
Anyway, but I mean, it was, but it wasn't like you're fired or something.
Right. Well, and you're not, what I always say is we're not saving lives here.
Right.
It's not life or death.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You can make a mistake as long as you learn. Let's keep moving forward.
Right. Exactly. And so
I love it.
Yeah. I just overcame that by a lot of us have a tendency to procrastinate. So that was kind of a wake-up call.
Oh, I bet. So what's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I received? Not necessarily from one-to-one personal, just chatting with somebody, but just kind of I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink. Have you heard of him?
No.
He's got this book on leadership. He was a Navy SEAL, and now he does business leadership consulting stuff. So
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah. I really dig his stuff, and kind of the biggest lesson there, the biggest advice there that he gives is the idea of just ownership, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
You are in control of way more of your universe than you think you are. Mm-hmm. And if you have that attitude of like, if there's a problem, it's my problem, and I can do something to fix it, or I can choose not to, but like I will own the either way, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to do anything about it, or I'm going to do something about it. Just having that mindset of like, it's, I own this.
Absolutely.
I own my universe, right? Yep. Not in like possessive way,
Right.
but in a like I am
dictator.
right,
I'm the master puppeteer. No, I totally get it. I'm all about growth mindset.
Yeah,
And that's totally
exactly,
true.
Exactly. Yep.
And everyone has to realize we are only in control of how we respond to something, because how someone else is seeing our behavior or our actions is based on them and their world.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
I'll have to check him out for sure.
Yeah.
So what's the best advice you can give our listeners, Mikey?
Yeah. I guess, one is I would pass that forward. And I guess the other one, which kind of goes back to my career journey is and kind of ties into the ownership bit is like, I used to have a bit of a mindset of somebody else has things figured out, right? And as I've evolved and gone through my career, it's really, we're all doing the best we can with the information that we have. And just kind of to remember that, especially earlier in your career where it's kind of hard, it feels like other people know what they're doing and know what's going on and know what's going to happen. Really, we're all just doing the best we can with the information we have.
Cheers to that. I can attest to that.
All right.
The world is not as it seems. All right, we have what's called the lightning round, which is brand new. You're a guinea pig.
Ooh.
I'm going to ask
All
you
right.
questions, and we need quick responses. Are you ready?
One more sip and then I'll be ready.
Okay, one more sip.
right.
I'll take a sip too. This Founders Breakfast Stout is
Yummy.
delicious. Okay, lightning round. Mikey,
Okay, go.
what is the first word that comes to mind when thinking of searching for a new job?
I'm not very fast. Networking.
Have you ever gotten a job through someone you know?
Absolutely.
Favorite question to ask when networking?
What's your favorite part of your job?
Do you practice for interviews?
Yes.
Have you ever been fired?
No.
I have. What's a job you wanted but didn't get?
I wanted. I mean, strangely enough, I've gotten every job I've.
Of course you have, because you're brilliant, Mikey.
But
and who wouldn't want an outgoing software engineer? I'm just saying.
I mean, but grad schools. I did not get into all the grad schools I applied for.
Oh, Thank you. What site would you go to if you were looking for a new job?
LinkedIn.
What's your favorite thing about your career?
The people.
Ding, ding, ding. You win. Cheers.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much. So where can people find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best for career type stuff.
Is it Mikey on LinkedIn? Mikey Boldt, or is it?
Mikey Boldt on LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Twitter, MW Boldt. I don't do a lot of tweeting, but I kind of ebb and flow, so you might see something there.
Cool. I love it. And for all of you listeners who want to love your Mondays, you can go to careersandcocktails.com to figure out where to purchase my book, I Hate Mondays. And I am thrilled to announce we have listeners all across the world: Belgium, Costa Rica, Netherlands, and UK. And if you could please help us out and review us on iTunes. And you can also subscribe to Careers and Cocktails on YouTube. Share us with all of your friends so they can get the best tips and tricks about job searching. And for all of you individuals who need help with your resumes or career coaching, I have been identified as one of the best career coaches, resume writers in the area. And you can go to Careers and Cocktails to learn more as well. Until next time, cheers.